Hello and welcome to Alafia Educational Live event. Alafia is a safe space dedicated for women to share their thoughts on issues affecting women. This event aims to raise public awareness about human trafficking and to educate the community on preventing it. I am your host, Dr. Ebere Azuma. We have two speakers for today's event, LaShawndra and Omotola. These women are leaders in anti-human trafficking, and it is so fortunate to have them here today providing this free educational webinar for each of us. Our guest speaker is LaShawndra Vernon. She's one of the few people who worked to get a human trafficking law, and she is a strong advocate globally. She is talking on the topic, understanding human trafficking. LaShawndra, welcome to Alafia Educational Live.
So the most important thing you want to do is define the words that you are using to describe situations. And so this is the definition. So the process is the recruitment, transportation, transferring, harboring, or receiving by way of threat, coercion, abduction, force, fraud, deceit, deception, or abuse of power to prostitute someone, produce pornography, create violence and exploitation, forced labor. So a lot of times we leave out the forced labor that is not sex trafficking, but it is a very significant way that people are impacted. It also includes things like debt bondage, people coming to America and being given the impression that they are free, but getting here and finding out that there is a debt that they hadn't paid that they have to work off. And so some of these are the things, and let's call a thing, slavery. At the core, this definition is something that the United States has not yet ratified and holds many other nations responsible for ratifying. And so we must, as the citizens of this place, in the case of those of us that are in the United States, we must be working within that government to demand that they work towards ending this crime against humanity. So I was engaged with the Women Peace and Women's International League for Peace and Freedom in working with the United States to create the National Action Plan to implement Women, Peace and Security Act. We did this work, didn't get everything that we asked for in that work, but it was some of the fastest turnaround that I've ever seen from the US State Department on actually coming close to ratifying a treaty that has not 100% hit the mark, but it has happened. And so it is proof that we can do it more frequently. And those plans gave way for things like the task forces that exist today. It all started though because Madeline Rees was the whistleblower that identified that a United States contractor was trafficking people in and out of the United States, but had immunity because they were a contractor. And so there was a film made about this. There are several films that have been created with similar storylines, but this specific situation is the reason why we advanced the Women, Peace and Security Act, because we were in direct violation of giving that contractor immunity as the United States. And so I challenge all of us listening to this webinar to think about what we haven't done yet, how much further we could take some of the resolution implications into law. What can we do on city levels to use human rights models that really work, look at things that exist already for us to make sure that we can create a just world and just society. Lots of immigrant women came to talk about their experiences coming to the United States after being in a hostile situation where they'd come from. And so there's been a lot of real impact that we could have by them being able to be present, but then also just real conversations about what we could do more of. We still didn't meet the mark. There's still more that needs to be done, but we've made strides over the last 10 years.
Hi, wow. That was so amazing. Thank you again for that. I am so grateful. So our next participant is Omotola. You've worked so hard to reduce human trafficking worldwide. You're going to be talking about human trafficking painted in migration. So welcome to Alafia Educational Monthly Seminar.
Human trafficking, my first encounter with it was sometime in 2008, 2018, when I was invited to serve as a consultant to an organization in Hong Kong to attempt to prevent people from entering slavery by educating them about how to identify foreign recruiters, how to identify traffickers who masquerade as job recruitment agents, travel agents, tour agents. But at that time, I didn't fully understand the scope of the problem and the depth it's eating into the fabric of society. My team and I spent 6 months actively on ground and then paperwork mapping just one particular community, then in Lagos, Nigeria. That's Lagos Island. Our work went through schools, went to 15 markets, went to schools, churches. But the conversations that we had with all the people enlightened us and kept me awake at night. I was scared about the number of people who were exiting, the means and the channels through which they were exiting. And a lot of the people that we spoke to made us understand, I have not seen my brother in the last 8 years. I have not spoken to my sister in the last 5 years. She left, she told us she was going to Dubai. We haven't seen her. So that's what triggered my interest. Then we ran into a victim in February who was courted online by a boyfriend, asked to come to Togo, and from Togo flew her to Malaysia. But before she left Nigeria, she was asked to take a comprehensive medical test. She thought was supposed to be for whatever job she was promised. On arriving there, she was again courted, pampered, prepared for the mission, which was organ harvesting. And then one day she woke up on a hospital bed to discover had had a surgery done for which she didn't know why. And then the boyfriend who she was with said, "Oh, we had an accident." Okay, if we had an accident, how come you are still okay? He said, "Well, you had a worse cut and we had to rush you in." But what happened was he had spiked her drink at, at a bar that they both went to. They had taken out some organs from her. At the time, she didn't know which particular organs, but she found out she kept getting weak, getting tired. And so went into some form of care over 2 months, and then eventually said, "I want to return to Nigeria so I can be with my family. My mom should be able to take care of me." At that time, they were done with her, and the boyfriend was happy to ship her back home. We met her in February. She eventually died in March.
Oh gosh.
What had happened was they had taken out one of her kidneys, they had taken out her liver, and two other things I can't recall their names now, that were harvested from her. She didn't know. We met this person on Facebook. When we're trying to track, how did you go? There were no links to them because she had no pictures, nothing. We couldn't even identify the person. That's on organ harvesting. So that's really got my interest. I became very concerned. But again, I really didn't know what to do. But God would be kind in 2019 when someone reached out via Instagram. She was a 27-year-old Nigerian who said, "I'm a graduate of English language. I was told there was a job for me in Dubai, which would pay me $2,000 a month, which I applied for. Charged me $1,000 to process this opportunity. But when we got on the plane, we arrived in Dubai only for him to tell me that we were proceeding to Oman. Arriving in Oman, there was an agent waiting to receive her who would take her and a group of 35 other girls to what is called an agency house. They would stay there for 3 days where they would shave their hair, wash them with special baths and all kinds of dehumanizing things. And then they are now shipped to the people who have paid for them. At this point in time, until the girls arrived, they didn't know someone had paid for them as it were to work as domestic slaves. Arriving there after working for a month, hoping to earn $2,000, found out she was going to be earning $150 a month. And then she flipped. I called him. The slave master said, well, look, I paid $15,000 to bring you here. I will get full value for my money. You're supposed to be here for 3 to 5 years for me to get full value for what I paid for. Crying out, she had tried to reach different people and then they got in touch with us. Worked with her. We had to do a lot of things, some of which I will say, like we had to ask her, look, you have to pretend you have kidney failure. So start urinating every day till you irritate them and they push you out of the house. Then we needed to walk through immigration to get her out because there's in the Middle East, there's something called the kafala system that ties the employee to the employer. So they are one unit. She can't decide to leave. If she wants to leave, she needs to return to the agency that brought her back for that separation to happen, and then she'll be relocated to another family. She can't just up and leave. Her passport is seized. She owns nothing, no medicals, no bank accounts. Thankfully, we're able to walk through immigration and she got her back to Nigeria in November 2019. That was the beginning of our work. When she arrived, I was here in the United States. We had a video call, my friend and I walked through this. And then I asked her, look, if this is happening to you, how many other girls like you are in these shoes? She told me, I could give you 20. I was expecting her to give me 3 or 4. It was a huge number. So I said, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have to create a WhatsApp group, put all of you in it, and start engaging. Let's even understand what's happening, because that's the fastest way we can talk to everybody at the same time. So I brought in what we call volunteers, associates, volunteer case managers, who took on 2 or 3 girls, documented their cases. We taught them how to use Google location, identify your location, send us specific pictures that show us where you are. If we need to rescue you, how do we find you? What's the picture of your madam? What are the things, personal identifiable things that help us to identify where you are if we need to send in someone? And so we're able to, using that, get 2 girls in each month. So we did that in November, we did that in December. However, December, something happened. December, we had bought a ticket for a girl, sent the ticket to the girl. She was due to return December 5, and then she was due to return December 6. And then December 5, she places a call and says, I have been resold to another woman. This is my 4th place. I'm not sure I'll be able to get on that flight tomorrow. This was pre-COVID. So we sent out a link and said, anyone who was in trouble, join this link. In 3 days, we had 100 people join the link. That's a WhatsApp group. That told us this is a serious problem. And they were coming, and apparently because this was just one link. I mean, I'm not a celebrity or anything. Just put on your Facebook page and say, if you're in trouble, just join in. And the girls started to come in from Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iraq, West Africa. They came from Gambia, Kenya, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire. And so one girl, the first girl who spoke up, said, look, well, I am in Cote d'Ivoire. Okay, now, so this girl was a hairdresser in Nigeria, learning at a shop with her aunt. And then someone she doesn't know and still can't recall right now approached that aunt, promising her that this hairdressing trade she had would make more money doing the same thing in Spain. Good idea. So how do we get to Spain? This was a 23-year-old girl who has not finished. She finished senior secondary school too. Mm-hmm. She never went to the university. So she knows nothing about migration, knows nothing about passports, knows nothing about anything. Tickets from Abuja to Lagos. Arriving in Lagos, she thought she was boarding a plane to Spain, only to be told the person who is buying your tickets is in Cote d'Ivoire. Arriving in Cote d'Ivoire, said they visited a particular lady where they were supposed to spend the night, pending where they continue their trip tomorrow. They spent the night. By the time she woke up, the man who brought her there had disappeared. The woman who they came to stay at her place said, you owe me 2 million CFA francs. She knows how. Well, the man who brought you, I paid him to bring you. You would have to work for me as a sex slave. She said she didn't understand. Sex slave, how, when, where? And then the madam said, this is what you're going to do. A sex slave would have to sleep with X number of men. make remittance, and you work for me over a 2-year period. If you're diligent, you'll be able to pay back my 2 million CFA francs, and then you can either start the business yourself or receive your freedom. So that story broke our hearts terribly. And we said we needed to get this girl home urgently. So can you send us your location, the basic things? Because she didn't fly, she couldn't give us a flight route or location. So we had to go through the land borders. We had to get someone who could speak French, someone who could speak English, go through the land borders. It was a 24-hour trip, but she was eventually identified. Thanks. We're just talking with phones, WhatsApp, back and forth, and just, it was very messy, but we found her, brought her back to Lagos. Arriving in Lagos, we found a host family for her and placed her with that host family where she currently is. She was sleeping with 15 men per day. So when she came, we had to take her for medicals, ran a lot of tests, but she kept complaining of stomach ache, which was very painful. And we tried everything, took her to the hospital, did all sorts of scans, nothing was forthcoming, nothing was showing. And then there's a practice they have in Nigeria when a woman just put to bed. In order for the blood to come out, they ask her to sit on a bowl of hot water. Hot water. And so we gave her that treatment, and condoms started coming out from her vagina, several. Those are the condoms that had broken in her. So think about how many men had gone through her, how many had broken in her. So she was very broken. We have worked with her over 1 year. She is just one case out of several. Since December 2019, we've been able to bring back till date 526 women and girls. But that's still a small number compared with those who are still out. As I speak to you, we still have 1,000 identified in Saudi Arabia. We have 800 in Oman, 800 in Lebanon, 353 in Oman. We have in Iraq. Many times the recruitment is done by someone you trust. The recruitment is shared as an opportunity for economic prosperity. It is shared as an opportunity to improve your family. And girls get into it. I want to take care of my child. I want to take care of my family. My husband is not doing well enough. They tell me $2,000 sounds like a good idea. And they get there. It's only on arriving there that they find out it's not what you were promised.
Thank you so much, Omotola. That was some very useful information that we're still digesting. You just gave us a quick overview of the international situation going on with human trafficking. So thank you again. Thank you for your work. You said that you were able to save 526 girls. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. You are a legend. Ms. LaShawndra, I want you to touch more on human trafficking in the United States. Is it mostly immigrants, as Omotola is saying, or do we have local recruitment as well? Like, I would like to know if you know the data there or experience as well.
So domestic trafficking happens just as much as immigration or refugee-based trafficking. I would say from my experience, it is not deeply different one from the other. I think there are a lot of things about being in the United States that sometimes don't realize have a lot of similarities to what people think is a third world country. But we are fortunate that there are some basic human rights that are there in the United States in larger portions. They're not everywhere, right? No nation is free of poverty. But because we've always been seen as a place that was helping everyone else by our own narrative, not necessarily because someone else said that they were helped by us or wanted to be helped by us, right? Because that's the culture. We've swept it under the rug for many years. When I started doing the work on domestic trafficking, it was simply based off of the definition, and the definition overlaps no matter where you are. It took a long time to get people to believe that they had been trafficked. That was the first part. Because if you just believe the situation was only intimate partner violence, domestic partner violence, then you don't think you were trafficked. people who were staying in a hotel in a room in large portions because they had been recruited to come work hotel jobs. So they had 10, 12, 15 people in one room. They thought that was a fair condition, but that is labor trafficking. So a lot of people didn't believe they were trafficked, didn't see themselves in the definition until we started defining it publicly and helping people to get through that part. So it's both. And I have a theory, it's not fully tested, that our children that come here are young adults that are second generation, so came here through a family member that was a refugee or an immigrant. And then they came to America, they're first generation, they spoke English maybe for their families. Those young people, I wouldn't say they are the same type of vulnerable, but they are a very unique group of young people who wear the signs of past abuse in a way that new abusers can recognize. And so it does make people more vulnerable if they've been through cycles of violence.
LaShawndra, thank you so much for that. What I heard you say is sometimes the victim of domestic human trafficking are unaware that they are humanly trafficked. Omotola, is it the same or is it different internationally? Do they know they're being trafficked, unlike the domestic trafficking?
They usually don't know.
Mm-mm.
You see, in fact, what makes it horrific is that the girl thinks, so the girl is paying $1,000. She thinks she's getting a job. Just recruiting her in the home country makes her sign a contract that when you get this job, you'll pay me a percentage of your earnings. So she has a promise of 2,000. She signs a contract that says she'll pay 10%. That's 200. The agent knows that she would earn 200, which is all of her salary, but he doesn't tell her that. Then she moves to the country. Arriving in the destination country, there's an agent waiting to receive her. That agent needs to be paid because that agent sourced for her from the home country agent. So you see, there's a lot of money in between. Now, the original, the final buyer, the final customer who she would have to work with, found her on a website that she didn't even know exists, that she doesn't even know exists. Listed on that website, the list of things she's able to do. She will be a nanny, all sorts of ridiculous things are in those contracts that are listed. Has a picture, it has a passport number, it has her age, it has every data she entered when she filled the registration form in the home country. She's not aware. So she thinks she's getting a sales job. She thinks she's getting an administrative job. It's only when she arrives that she realizes she's going to be working as a domestic.
Wow. Omotola, this question is for you.
Okay.
Are the human traffickers so emboldened that they don't know they're breaking laws? Like, go ahead.
One, they don't care. Two, they use all the tools of power, oppression, fear. And you see, you need to be able to control a victim and make the victim not think of themselves as a person, as a product.
LaShawndra, you and Omotola keep using the word slavery to describe human trafficking. When we think of slavery, at least in the United States, we think of transatlantic slavery. So is this the same or is this different? Can you guys both, starting with LaShawndra, state to me why you consider this slavery?
We may have technically abolished slavery in the United States, but we instituted several systemically racist practices to keep the same effects of slavery, and that is controlling a population of people that are poor. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and the percentage of Black-born Americans who have not met the economic success that some of their peers have that are white, the evidence shows up in systemic things for the continuation of slavery. And so in this new era, in this stage of racism on display, we can no longer pretend that the things that are defined in our face are not true. And I did not write that human trafficking definition. That was written on the United Nations level. And the final category within how trafficking occurs is slavery. But each of the things above that list are a form of practice that happened so that slavery and the transatlantic slave trade could be possible.
I like to think that slavery never ended. The transatlantic slave trade, people were stolen against their will. There's no difference between that and now. What makes this worse is that people are paying to get into slavery. People are willingly, voluntarily entering into slavery with the promise of economic prosperity.
Wow, thank you again, Omotola, for the tips. So the last question here is, do you guys think social media has helped you as an advocate or has helped the recruiters more?
Some things I can't assess yet, right? The way that 2020 ran, I have no idea the impact it's had on trafficking specifically. I can tell you it's had a huge impact on intimate partner violence.
Omotola, can you touch on that in terms of, has social media helped you as an advocate or has it emboldened recruiters?
My answer would be both. On our part, it has helped because at least the girls, a lot of those we've been able to work with, have mostly found us on social media. We try to form different small groups, put them community support groups, groups of 10, groups of 15, to support each other and make sure that they're talking to each other. So that's helpful. However, the same way, also an easy way for the recruiters to also recruit the girls.
Thank you so much again, Omotola and LaShawndra, for spending almost 90 minutes today with us, educating our community on ways to understand human trafficking. There are some key take-home points that I want all of us to reflect on. One, the role of victims to stop the practice. Omotola stressed it. Just because you were once a victim doesn't mean you should continue the cycle. You should take it upon yourself, as Omotola said, to be your sister's keeper and prevent another girl from going through that path. We must break the cycle. Another thing that we both all learned from you guys is knowledge is power. And that's why we're doing events like this, and we hope to continue with this dialogue. And Omotola, you said this is $150 billion industry. I don't know if you have $150 billion to counteract the effect, but I hope people there, if you guys can make some donation. Omotola, you can tell them how to make donation to support you and the work you do. So yes, let's all support people that work against human trafficking because it's our duty as a brother and sister's keeper to do just that. So again, you can find the information on Alafia page on Facebook, and in the comment section, you can get Omotola Fawunmi@gmail.com. Again, that's Omotola Fawunmi's information. This event is hosted by me, Dr. Azuma, and this is sponsored by the Alafia organization. Alafia is an educational platform, empowerment platform, where we do monthly dialogue on things that impact women. We want to be that change agent that will stop modern day slavery. Again, thank you everyone, and we hope you will tune in again for our next event.